Le Magnifique was the hottest restaurant on Fifth Avenue in New York City, with its luxurious interior, soft lighting, and soothing melodies played by a live pianist. The venue exuded sophistication and exclusivity. The patrons who frequented Le Magnifique were the cream of New York society, powerful businessmen, celebrities, and heirs to centuries-old fortunes. It was not uncommon to see gleaming sports cars parked in front of the restaurant, from which men in custom-made Italian suits and women in designer dresses and dazzling jewelry descended. Entering Le Magnifique meant entering a world of privilege and ostentation. The waiters and waitresses at the restaurant, always impeccable in their well-cut uniforms, were used to serving this high-end clientele. Madison Clark, one of Le Magnifique's most experienced waitresses, had a knack for identifying at a glance the social status of customers based on their clothing and accessories. She knew exactly how to flatter the rich and famous, praising their expensive watches, designer handbags, and impeccable tans purchased at exclusive resorts around the world. At the same time, Madison did not hesitate to treat customers who she thought did not belong in that refined environment. On the night in question, shortly before Taylor's arrival, a middle-aged man wearing simple, worn-out clothes tried to enter Le Magnifique. The maître de main, with a condescending smile, informed him that the restaurant was crowded and that he would need a reservation. The man insisted, saying he was willing to wait for a table, but the maître d' was adamant. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't accommodate you tonight. Maybe you want to try one of the more casual restaurants down the street." As the man walked away, visibly embarrassed, Madison exchanged a complicit glance with the maître. That kind of customer was certainly not welcome at Le Magnifique. They were there to serve the rich and powerful, not ordinary people. It was at that moment that Taylor entered the restaurant. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a white t-shirt, and a brown cardigan. Her hair was tied in an unassuming ponytail, and she didn't sport any jewelry or designer accessories. At first glance, Taylor seemed totally out of place in that environment of luxury and ostentation. Madison watched her up and down, her lips curling into a scornful smile. Another customer who certainly couldn't afford a meal at Le Magnifique. It would be fun to watch her try. With determined steps, Madison approached Taylor, ready to dispense the same cold, superior treatment she reserved for all the clients she thought inferior. She had no idea how that night would change her perception forever. "Good evening, welcome to Le Magnifique," Madison said, her voice laden with subtle sarcasm as she greeted Taylor. "Do you have a reserve?" Taylor smiled gently. "No, I don't have a reservation, but I'd like a table for one person, please." Madison raised an eyebrow, looking Taylor up and down again. "A table for one? Are you sure you're in the right place, honey? Le Magnifique isn't exactly the kind of establishment to look for. People like you." "People like me?" Taylor asked quietly. "You know, people who aren't used to going to restaurants of that level," Madison replied with a condescending smile. "Maybe you feel more comfortable in a place that's more affordable." "I appreciate the suggestion," Taylor said, keeping his composure. "But I'd very much like to have dinner here tonight." Madison shrugged. "That's fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Follow me." She then led Taylor to a remote table near the kitchen, where the noise of the pots and the heat of the stoves were more intense. "Here it is, your table." Taylor looked around, noticing that there were several empty tables in nicer areas of the room. "Isn't there a table available closer to the windows, or maybe in the center of the hall?" "I'm sorry, but these tables are reserved for our regular customers," Madison blatantly lied. "You know, the ones who really belong here," she added with a wink. As Taylor settled at the clearly underprivileged table, Madison quickly attended to a couple who had just walked in, a man wearing an expensive suit and a woman sporting a stunning evening gown. "Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt, what a pleasure to welcome you again. Your usual table awaits you." Madison ushered the couple to a prime table overlooking Fifth Avenue, pulling out the chair for Mrs. Vanderbilt to sit on. "Can I offer you our best Cabernet Sauvignon to start with? It arrived just yesterday, directly from France." Smiling and chatting animatedly with the couple, Madison seemed to have completely forgotten about Taylor's presence. No menu was offered to him, no suggestions for drinks or starters. It was as if she had become invisible. Across the room, an elderly gentleman named Henry Whitmore, a frequent customer of Le Magnifique, watched the scene with interest. He noticed Madison's differential treatment of Taylor and frowned, intrigued. In all his years of frequenting the restaurant, he had never seen a customer so openly despised. Henry wondered how this young woman would react to Madison's snobbish attitude. Would she lose her temper? Would it make a scandal? Or would she simply walk away humiliated and defeated? Either way, he felt he was about to witness something interesting. In the center of that sophisticated restaurant, a silent confrontation was about to unfold, and no one, not even Madison, could have predicted its surprising outcome. After long minutes of waiting, Madison finally approached Taylor's desk, carrying a single menu. She handed it over with an exaggerated flourish, as if she were doing a great favor. "Here's the menu, miss," Madison said. "I must warn you that Le Magnifique's dishes can be a little expensive by some standards." Taylor opened the menu and studied it calmly, ignoring the veiled teasing. "Thank you, I'll need a few minutes to decide." Madison let out a giggle. "Of course, take your time. You might want to consider our more budget-friendly options, like the soup of the day or the simple salad. They are more affordable." Without waiting for an answer, Madison walked away again, leaving Taylor alone with the menu. When serving the other tables, she made a point of complimenting customers' orders, saying things like, "Excellent choice, sir. Our filet mignon is simply divine," or "Great order, madame. These shrimp are the freshest in town." When Taylor finally called Madison to place her order, the waitress walked up to her with a look of boredom. "Have you made up your mind, or do you need a few more hours?" she asked sarcastically. "I'd like the filet mignon with fungi risotto, please," Taylor said, handing over the menu. Madison raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised. "The filet mignon? Are you sure? Because it's a very expensive dish, you know. Maybe you want to reconsider and ask for something more, consistent with its possibilities." "I'm sure, thank you," Taylor replied calmly. With a sigh, Madison took the request and walked away without saying anything else. However, instead of forwarding the order to the kitchen, she placed it at the end of the line, giving priority to the dishes of the other customers. While Taylor waited patiently for her meal, Madison continued to neglect it, serving the other tables with a bright smile and a helpful attitude. She brought starters, drinks, and main courses to the other patrons, but offered Taylor nothing but dismissive looks and smirks. As time passed, some customers began to notice the situation. Mr. Henry Whitmore, in particular, was increasingly puzzled. He watched Taylor's patience and composure in the face of Madison's rude treatment, and he couldn't help but admire her for it. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone present, from customers to other employees, seemed to be waiting to see what would happen next. It would only be a matter of time before something, or someone, broke that precarious balance. And then, the moment came. Madison, passing Taylor's table with a tray full of plates, couldn't resist the temptation of yet another provocation. "Are you still waiting for your little steak, honey?" she asked aloud, attracting the attention of nearby customers. "Maybe you have to settle for a cheese sandwich because that's what your money should be for." Some people laughed nervously, but most were silent, shocked by Madison's audacity. Henry Whitmore shook his head, disgusted with the waitress's attitude, and it was at that moment, with all eyes on her, that Taylor finally spoke. "You know, Madison, I really appreciate your concern for my financial well-being," Taylor said quietly, her voice echoing in the silence of the hall. "But I can assure you that I don't need your supervision to make my choices." Madison opened her mouth to answer, but was interrupted by the abrupt arrival of the restaurant's manager, a middle-aged man named Robert. He looked distressed and slightly out of breath, as if he had run there. "Miss Donovan," Robert exclaimed, quickly approaching Taylor's desk. "1,000 pardons for the delay in receiving her in person. I had no idea that you would give us the pleasure of your presence tonight." A murmur of surprise ran through the hall. The customers looked at each other, confused, while Madison visibly paled. "No problem, Robert," Taylor replied with a gentle smile. "I needed to see for myself how things were working around here." Robert turned to Madison, his face expressing a mixture of shock and disapproval. "Madison, were you attending to Miss Donovan? Why didn't you inform me immediately?" I didn't know," Madison stammered, suddenly realizing the gravity of her mistake. "Miss Donovan is one of our most cherished customers," Robert explained, his voice charged with respect. "In fact, she is not just a customer. Miss Donovan is one of the owners of Le Magnifique." A stunned silence followed this revelation. Madison looked like she was about to faint, her face drained of all color. The other customers looked at Taylor with expressions of amazement and admiration. Henry Whitmore, the elderly gentleman who had observed the whole scene, could not restrain a satisfied smile. He always appreciated a good setback, especially when it involved someone as arrogant as Madison being put in his place. I'm sorry, Miss Donovan," Madison stammered, her voice trembling. "I had no idea. Please forgive me." But Taylor just raised her hand, silencing Madison's fumbling excuses. "It's not me you owe an apology to, Madison. It's yourself and all the customers you've treated with disdain and prejudice over the years." Madison lowered her eyes, tears of shame and regret beginning to form. She knew Taylor was right. His snobbish and judgmental attitude had not only offended the restaurant owner, but had also prevented her from seeing the people for who they really were. At that moment, as the buzz of customers filled the air, Madison realized that she had received a valuable lesson in humility, and that lesson would forever change the way she saw the world and the people around her. Taylor rose from her desk and walked to the center of the room, her elegant and confident bearing contrasting with her simple clothes. All eyes were on her, waiting for her next words. "I'd like to say a few things," Taylor began, her voice clear and firm. "First, I want to thank all of you for choosing Le Magnifique tonight. It is a pleasure to welcome you here." She turned to Madison, who was still with her head down, embarrassed. "Madison, I know you're an excellent waitress. I watched her serve the other customers skillfully and efficiently, but what I saw tonight saddened me deeply." Madison looked up, meeting Taylor's compassionate gaze. "Miss Donovan, I'm really sorry. I let myself be carried away by prejudices and mistaken judgments. This will not be repeated." Taylor nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "I believe in you, Madison, and I want you to understand one very important thing. No one should need to prove their worth to be treated with respect and dignity. It doesn't matter if the person is wearing expensive or simple clothes, if he is rich or poor. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and consideration." Customers around the room began to applaud, touched by Taylor's words. Some stood, raising their glasses in a silent toast to that lesson of wisdom. Henry Whitmore, in particular, was grinning from ear to ear. He approached Taylor and shook her hand firmly. "Miss Donovan, it has been a pleasure to witness your grace and integrity tonight. The world needs more people like you." Taylor thanked the compliment with a warm smile. Then she turned to Robert, the manager. "Robert, please serve a round of champagne to everyone in attendance, on me. I want to celebrate this moment of learning and growth." As the champagne glasses were distributed, Taylor resumed her seat at the table. Madison, now with an expression of humility and gratitude, approached her. "Miss Donovan, I would like to serve you personally tonight, if you will allow me, not as a way to redeem myself, but as a gesture of respect and appreciation." Taylor nodded, touched by Madison's renewed attitude. "I would be honored, Madison. Thank you." And so, at that high-end restaurant in the heart of New York, a powerful lesson had been learned. A lesson in equality, respect, and the importance of treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their appearance or social status. It was the beginning of a new era for Le Magnifique, and for Madison it was the beginning of a journey of self-discovery and transformation. A few days after that memorable evening, Le Magnifique reopened its doors with a new philosophy. A large sign was placed at the entrance to the restaurant with elegant letters that read, "Here everyone is welcome." Taylor had worked with Robert and the restaurant staff to implement significant changes to the way customers were greeted and treated. It no longer mattered what they looked like, wealth or social status. Every person who walked into Le Magnifique would be treated with the same respect and attention. Madison, for her part, had fully embraced this new approach. She now greeted each customer with a genuine smile, making sure to make everyone feel valued and appreciated. On a quiet afternoon, Taylor walked into the restaurant wearing simple clothes, just like the first night. But this time, Madison welcomed her with open arms, with a warm smile and heartfelt words of welcome. The two women sat together, sharing a cup of tea and reflections on the events of that transformative night. Madison expressed her gratitude for being given a second chance and the opportunity to grow as a person. As she left Le Magnifique that day, Taylor walked the bustling streets of New York, feeling refreshed and hopeful. She knew that the change she had inspired in the restaurant was just the beginning. With each step, Taylor reflected on the power of small gestures of kindness and understanding. She envisioned a world where everyone could see beyond appearances and recognize the inherent humanity of each individual. As the sun set over the city that never sleeps, Taylor smiled to herself, remembering the words she had spoken to Madison that fateful night. "In a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind." It was a simple but powerful message, A message that Taylor hoped could spread far beyond the confines of Le Magnifique, touching hearts and transforming lives wherever it was heard. And with this final reflection, our story comes to an end. But the impact of Taylor's actions and the lesson she shared will continue to reverberate, inspiring others to choose kindness, empathy, and respect in all their interactions. May we all, like Madison, learn to see beyond appearances and treat each other with the dignity that every human being deserves. And so, my dear readers, I invite you to reflect on the message of this story. How can you apply Taylor's lesson in your own life? What small gestures of kindness can you offer to those around you, regardless of who they are or what they appear to be? Leave your reflections and experiences in the comments. Share this story with those you believe could benefit from your message. And above all, always remember, in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Together we can spread the message of compassion and respect, transforming the world one gesture of kindness at a time.